In 2013, our community was in the midst of a modern-day orphan crisis. Over 250 children were removed from their homes and placed into foster or relative care in Whatcom County. The children were in emotional turmoil, often sick, hungry, and unclean. Due to the shortage of foster homes, when the children first entered the state's care, there was often nowhere for them to go, unless there were relatives, who were often hard to track down, that could be a safe option to care for them. We would have children spending their day sitting in the DCYF office where I worked as an area administrator, waiting for the staff to locate a foster or relative home to care for them. It was all too common to find children napping on the floor of the cubicles of the social worker or running around through the office while the social worker was scrambling to get records and reports ready for the upcoming court hearing, and also searching for a relative or foster placement. If you have ever tried getting complicated work done while also caring for a child, you know what a challenging task this was. It's nearly impossible to think and plan for a child's future when they're sitting at your feet, needing their fears soothed and snacks to be opened right now. Imagine the work my staff could get done if the children on their caseloads were away from the office in a warm, safe place with adults to soothe their fears and open their snacks. But we didn't have that place. So we were often forced to place children in the only placement available to them. Children would often be separated from their siblings due to the foster home's lack of space. The children would miss school and often be placed in other counties where an available foster home was found, sometimes as far away as Spokane or Yakima. If a foster home wasn't located, they might spend one night in a foster home that squeezed them in, and then return to DCYF for the day, while the social worker continued to look for a placement for them. So we've established our great need and that we have a great big problem to solve. And now we need some people to solve it. This great story needs heroes. Here's how that happened. Chapter 1, The Vision. My friend Lonnie Swanson reached out to me in 2012 to ask how she and the team from the Light of the World Prayer Center could pray for the issues occurring in Whatcom County related to child abuse. One of the areas I asked her to pray about was a lack of foster homes for children that had to be removed from their family's care. I asked that she and the team specifically pray for a place that children could go when a foster or relative placement couldn't be located quickly. And for the next 1.5 years, they did just that. In 2014, I was at a community meeting where Sheriff Elfo and I were addressing homelessness and child abuse issues in the area. A guest speaker shared about a program in Everett that was addressing the lack of foster homes with a 72-hour emergency shelter called Safe Place. I was sitting at a table of community members who were there to learn about the crisis in Bellingham, and one of them just happened to be Ray Deck. After the guest speaker finished his presentation, I mumbled under my breath that we really needed one of these. And Ray, who I'd never met before, asked me, "What did you say?" He and I began to talk, and I told him that we had a desperate need for a safe place for the children that enter foster care system in Whatcom County. Ray told me that God had placed a burden on his heart several years ago to serve the orphans, and that he believed Safe Place was how he was to do it. I shared Ray's vision with Lonnie Swanson, and a group of us traveled to Everett to learn more about their safe place and to see what it would take to start one here in Whatcom County. Chapter 2, Let's Make It Happen. But now what? Who could make this dream a reality? Ray, Lonnie, and I started looking for the right people, and we started to gather at Woods Coffee to map out a plan. We grew our ragtag group of heroes slowly but surely. We invited people to help where they could and share the skills they had. Psychologists shared their knowledge about the children we would be serving. A veteran of the nonprofit world helped us organize and incorporate as Skookum Kids, which is a Chinook word for strong or healthy, a word that summarizes our goals well, that the children who entered our care would have the chance to be strong and to live healthy, happy lives. We had a team, we had a name, and now we needed a place. As I was praying about the creation of Skookum Kids, the empty parsonage at Hillcrest Church came to mind. I shared this idea with the startup team, and after talking with the Hillcrest board, that little gray house in Fairhaven finally became the safe place we'd been working and praying for years. A safe place and everything else. It also became our meeting place. And while the coffee wasn't as good, there was a little more space for our growing team. We often gathered around a donated dining room table at the new home, drafting handbooks, writing policies, and continuing to invite more friends. During one of these meetings before we were open, I answered a call from one of my social workers asking what to do with an emergency placement who had nowhere to go. The worker was really frustrated as every option she could think of had been explored. It really hurt me to think of this little one already traumatized and confused, having the added impact of being without a place to sleep that night. It was really powerful to be literally sitting inside of the solution to such a real problem, and it made the urgency of our work so much more real. We got to work filling this house with the things that would make it a home, and with the volunteers that would take care of the kids my workers were calling me about. We started to turn that empty parsonage into the landing. Chapter 3. The final touches. We spoke at churches and service clubs about the need, and our community rose to the occasion in ways beyond our expectations. Volunteers showed up at the house to clear out years of storage in the basement, painting, remodeling, building bunk beds, crafting new stair rails, building shelves in the basement for clothes bins, and an awning to cover the basement entry, which was often filled with rainwater, and more. Others reached out to us to see what furniture we needed, and soon the house started to look like a home. In November of 2014, we hosted a Christmas open house. We had pretty close to nothing in the house, so it was hard to even imagine it as a place for kids. But all those people came and had such big imaginations and hopes for what we could do in this house. They committed to buying things we would need to turn it into a home. People went to Target to buy socks or a hairdryer for kids we wouldn't even meet for another year, but they were already preparing to take care of. A few people started to offer their services. Judy Hazel stepped up to be our chef and grocery shopper. Bren Weatherby gifted an organization, became the lead for the Skookum Elves, whose roles included keeping the house clean, doing laundry, and sorting the clothing donations. And Grandma June Fraser Thistle brought the amazing Sock Monkey project to the mix, a hit still today with kids of all ages that come to the landing. We certainly didn't understand how placements worked yet, because on our first day, a crew of volunteers showed up to the house around noon and sat waiting and waiting for a call, which finally came in around 7 p.m. It was for a sibling set of 4, the oldest being 9 and the youngest a few months old. The landing staff were ready and able to say yes, that we had a safe place where 4 siblings could stay together and be well cared for. A few days in, we had our first John Doe guest. This was a little boy who'd been found wandering around by the train tracks, and he came to us without anything, not even a name. During his time at the landing, social workers at the department were able to locate his parents who were worried sick. He'd been staying with his grandmother over the weekend, and she'd slipped into a diabetic coma while watching him. He had a great time capturing crabs and eating ice cream at the landing, and when it was time for him to go, his grandma was stable, and he got to go home with his parents, who had plans in place to make sure that there was always someone safe to take care of him. The safe place we imagined was finally a reality, a place for siblings to stay together, a place for children to be taken care of while social workers do complicated work, a place to soothe fears and have snacks opened, and to watch a movie on the couch and be tucked into bed. 8 years ago, Ray said, "I can't wait to see what we, the Whatcom County community, will build together." And since then, we've built something very special and desperately needed. Over 800 children have now experienced the safety and loving care of the many volunteers that work at the landing, and this is worthy of some applause. I encourage you to think about how you might fit into this story that we are writing together in Whatcom County, because there are still great needs and there are still many heroes left to join the cause.